And it's time now for our weekly discussion about parenting with author Maggie Reigh. Thanks for coming in, Maggie.
Oh, my pleasure.
And in parenting, an issue that often comes up has to do with an agreement between parents, consistency between what one parent is saying to a child and what the other parent is saying. And disagreements can come up between the parents as sort of the child can use to divide and conquer, you might say.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that?
Well, I don't know that there's any quick fix answer to avoid everything, but I think that one of the keys is to really stop and, for both parents, or one parent at least to begin, and stop and say, hold it. What's going on here? What am I really teaching my children when I'm fighting all the time with the spouse, etc., or whatever's going on? And what do I really want them to remember about me? And what do I really want for them? And to get very, very clear, sort of remove yourself, step back from your family, become very clear and say, now how do I want my kids to remember me? On my 85th birthday, and I talk about a vision statement before, but really, what do I want them to say? On a recent tour I was doing, we actually took 5 minutes only to write down, what do you really want your kids to say on your 85th birthday? Go, start writing, don't stop. And so many people found it so helpful, and it's so centering. So once I've done that, then I can step back and say to my spouse or my partner, now, you know, what's really important to you? How do you want to be remembered?
So you don't want to end up acting the rest of the time as you're a parent, going, okay, if I act really nice now, they'll remember me well when I'm 85. I mean, it's not, you don't want to put on an act for the rest of your adult life.
It's not an act, but it's embodying the characteristics that you want to be remembered by. Yeah.
So let's talk first of all about the kind of damage it can cause if a child is constantly being exposed to the bickering or mixed messages from parents. I mean, what is the impact of that on a child, first of all?
Well, I think that the biggest impact is that they're watching us in relationship and learning how to work in relationships. So that's, you know, this is what we're teaching them, how to get along in a relationship or not. And sometimes when people are saying, well, I can't carry this out because my spouse won't, and then really what they're watching is what? Us blaming somebody else for us not being able to create the relationship we want with our child in our lives. So, you know, to be able to listen to your spouse and to really find out what is important to them, see if you can find a commonality in what's important, but then to carry out what is important for me with my child.
So you kind of take a step back and go, okay, what are the bottom line goals I have for raising this child? And probably the two parents will find out that the goals are pretty similar, even if the methods are different.
Absolutely. And then it's taking a look at different methods. Take a look around, because that's what happens. I was raised this way, you were raised that way, and we're both saying, well, I was right. And if we could just let go of being right for a moment, because many people would rather be right than happy, and say, hey, what's really important here, then we can both listen to one another and see if we can move the direction together that we want to move.
Because you're never going to agree all the time. There are going to be differences in the way you think a child should be raised year in and year out. And as the child gets older, the situations are going to change and the disagreements are going to come up. But if you can go back to those sort of common goals.
Right. And can we respectfully disagree? Because that's what the kids are watching. And that's what they're learning as well as they look at us. If you say something like, oh, you're just like your dad, and it's a derogatory comment, you're putting the child and the father
You're
down.
insulting both the kid and their parent, and maybe ruining the child's view of their father.
Absolutely.
If it's the father that's in the situation.
Even if the father isn't living with you at that point in time, and you put the father or the other parent down, your child is a child of that person, and they will not take well to that. That will be damaging for them. So don't put the other parent down in front of your children.
All right, lots of good tips there. Interesting as usual. Thanks very much. Thanks to Maggie Reigh for coming in, and you can get more information by going to chbc.com and looking for the link. Okanagan Now is coming up next.